I needed a liver transplant, or else I was going to die. I spent 6 weeks at Bakersfield Memorial Hospital where I just got sicker and sicker, got addicted to dope while I was in there. And through that process, I continued to work with my dogs. I rehabilitated myself with the care of a God of my understanding, the dogs that were in my life, started fostering, started bringing all these dogs into my world. I started putting one foot in front of the other, walking. I changed everything about my diet. I started going to meetings, got involved in my community, and Marley's Mutts was just born of that. I never wanted to become a dog rescuer or a prison educator. Like, the organization was just born out of me trying to qualify for a liver transplant. And so we developed this prison industrial complex where we're locking up 2.5 million Americans, 10 million children directly affected by, parents who are incarcerated. You got $100 billion prison industrial complex, just a system that's just chugging along. There's so much momentum. There's so much inertia. It is this massive thing with prison unions associated and state spending and federal spending and this all these ideologies that are truly nonsensical. Kids and stuff, they don't want to hear about pops who's been away for 20 years. They don't want.
That's right.
They don't, they got nothing to grasp onto, and then all of a sudden they see dad rehabilitating a dog on the Positive Change site with his holding his giving a profound graduation speech coming from the heart, crying, in front of his boys, giving love to men outside his race and to the it's just beautiful.
We're here for the introduction of In and Out. It's a movement to change the world. It represents all things and all of us at all times. It's about freeing ourselves of any prison.
Welcome to In and Out Podcast, where I have dope conversations with incredible people who have been freed from some form of prison. I am Eric Geralt, and today I'm talking with my guest, Zach Skow, as he takes us on a journey of his interaction of the relationship and therapeutic healing of canines and inmates. What's happening, Zach? I really appreciate you meeting with me today. I want to give you an opportunity to introduce yourself, tell us about your program, and then we can get started.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a pleasure to be here, man. Anybody who's trying to move the needle and get involved in this world, this particular world of advocating for the incarcerated and the formerly incarcerated, man, you got my vote. We need as many podcasts. We need as many conversations. We need as many, whether it's button heads or having real conversations, we got to be doing it. It's the only way we're going to affect socio-cultural change. So it's an honor to be sitting here with you. And thank you for considering, my what I got in here and what I got in here as to have some value. I really appreciate it. I can give you some background on the general idea. Well, there's a few things going on, right? So I founded Marley's Mutts Dog Rescue in 2009. I was coming out of alcoholism and drug addiction. I went into liver failure, so acute alcoholic and what's called end stage liver failure, END. So I needed a liver transplant, or else I was going to die. I spent 6 weeks at Bakersfield Memorial Hospital where I just got sicker and sicker, got addicted to dope while I was in there. And then by the grace of God, I got paired with the comprehensive transplant program at Cedars-Sinai, which does liver transplant. I was admitted to that program. Basically, to save my life, they sent me home to get me away from the drugs that were killing me in the hospital. And through that process, I continued to work with my dogs. I rehabilitated myself with the care of a God of my understanding, the dogs that were in my life, started fostering, started bringing all these dogs into my world. I started, putting one foot in front of the other, walking. I changed everything about my diet. I started going to meetings, got involved in my community, and Marley's Mutts was just born of that. I never wanted to become a dog rescuer or a prison educator. Like, the organization was just born out of me trying to qualify for a liver transplant. By the time I qualified, 6 months after By the time I qualified, I no longer needed a liver transplant. So it was a real miraculous situation. I'm one of very few people who have had end-stage cirrhosis of the liver and have healed and gotten better. And I still have my same old liver. I'm part of a real interesting series of kind of control groups that they're following around folks like myself who have beat this disease, this liver disease, and survived without transplant. So the organization has been focused on rescuing animals and really we take a holistic approach to animal rescue. We are trying to save as many lives as possible. We euthanize tens of thousands of dogs in the state of California, if not darn near 100,000 dogs a year. And it's really a modern day Holocaust that's taking place in our animal shelters. And so we address that by rescue by relocation. So we're moving dogs out of the state to areas that they don't have euthanasia or high kill rates. That's called rescue by relocation. That program is called Mutt Movers. We have what's called Miracle Mutts, which is our therapy program. So those dogs, it's a couple dozen therapy dogs that we've certified through our own canine assisted activities program. Those dogs are active everywhere. Anywhere human beings can benefit from the human animal bond, whether it's prisons, institutions, adult living, senior living, assisted living, schools for autistic children, like anywhere. We've partnered with over 100 nonprofit organizations bringing our dogs to render services. And then obviously we have a rescue ranch, which is where I am now. We have a 20-acre ranch. We have about 170 dogs within our care. Any number of those, about 60 to 70, are living in foster homes in the area. Another 60 to 80 live here at the ranch. And then another 20 to 25 are living in the state prison, federal prison, and juvenile systems around the state of California. And that's kind of the essence of Marley's Mutts. How I got into prison reform and advocating for the incarcerated was a friend of mine got out of prison after 13 years, from 17 to 30. Wow. And so for 13 years, his whole adulthood was spent incarcerated. He got moved from California to Arkansas, and the private prison kind of shenanigans, transferred to Oklahoma, a whole bunch of stuff. And when he got out, he had that stare. He had that kind of like borderline kind of feral, frequency to him, where it was just difficult for him to make conversation with a man, with a woman, to be vulnerable, to feel safe, to not. All these things were really challenging. And I paired him up with a dog that I was fostering who had been shot. She'd been shot in the chest. We had to remove 2 lobes of her lung. And the way that dog changed everything about his life, like his entire trajectory. Robbie's covered in prison house tattoos, so he's feeling judged. He's not sure how to integrate into life and take that step forward to, it's just one of those things. And for me too, he was a nervous, and maybe not afraid, but nervous of people, places, and things. And I know I was feeling that way when I first started to get sober. And you put that dog with him, you give him that 90-pound pit bull on the other end of that leash where he can go have conversations. It's a common denominator. When you're out in public and you got that dog with you, if you get nervous, if you have your dog to talk about. Right. One of the things that's been so beautiful about the human-animal bond and trying to introduce our society to the incarcerated is they have this trepidation to accept the incarcerated or formerly incarcerated into their hearts. But when you do it through the lens of an animal as well, there's this immediate acceptance and there's this understanding. So it served to have others accept him, and it served for him to feel a little bit more comfortable navigating the world. We hired him. He started to give his testimony alongside myself, alongside my mom at the mission at Kern County, where she got sober. It's a homeless center in Bakersfield, and just changed everything about his life. He now has his own dog rescue called Strength of Shadow. Wow. Strength of Shadow was that dog that helped rescue him. And he's doing great things up here in Kern County and Lake Isabella. So it was at that point, this was back in 2012, that we really tried to get into the system. I was greeted with brick walls left and right. I didn't know the first thing about prison programming. So I tried through the jail system up here at Laredo County Jail. And then we tried here at Tehachapi State Prison, and it just wasn't working out. And then basically we kept trying. And 4 years later, at the end of 2015, Warden David Long, who's now in charge, he's now the chief deputy in charge of long-term probation and parole up at CDCR in Sacramento. He took a gamble on us and he said, I'm trying to change things around here. I'm trying to put an onus on programming. I love what you're doing. I love your attitude. Will you guys come in here and bring the program to Cal City? They didn't have any money at the time. We had to pay for it exclusively ourselves, but he was going to promised to pilot us, get us approved. Right. And we linked up our operational procedures to fit into that system. We had to brief all the COs there who were very nervous about us bringing dogs in there, worried that our students were going to be training them to attack them. And then we had issues with the students too, because how things are organized in California state prisons is very gang affiliated and gang organized. And And they also had trepidation about us because the COs think we're associated with the students. The students think we're associated with the COs. So we kind of just had to figure it out. So we got boycotted by a few, by one of the groups in the very beginning. And then we had a Rosa Parks of sorts. We had a gentleman who crossed that racial picket line and said, you know what, I don't buy any of this. This is something that's going to better my life. I'm going for it. And once he did that, the rest of that race followed suit. And then we had real harmony. And then you started to see some real profound things happen on that yard. And that was the beginning of positive change, baby. That was January 2016. Since then, we've been at, we've had level 4 programs at level 4 180, Old Corcoran State Prison, one of the most dangerous yards, in California. We've been at Wasco. We have 2 programs at North Kern State Prison. We have a program at the BOP, the Bureau of Prisons, the Federal Victorville Complex. We got a program next door here at Tehachapi State Prison, which is, we literally share a boundary. We share a border with Tehachapi State Prison. So yeah, and we have 2 juvenile programs, a boys juvenile program and a girls juvenile program. And that boys program is taught by 2 of our graduates. One of whom was at Corcoran State Prison for, he was incarcerated for 18 years, locked up at 14, tried as an adult. And another one of our gentlemen, 22 years, Mr. Galaviz, who did his last 4 years in our program at North Kern State Prison. So it's not only that our guys are getting educated in prison and working this program and saving lives, but they're exiting prison and they're finding gainful employment within the $100 billion pet industry. And we got 30 dudes out there, professional dog trainers who have been through the program, who are free, who are small business owners, who are contributing to their community, and who are bringing in, these are mostly Black and brown gang members.
Wow.
Former gang members. So we're bringing in a whole new populace, a whole new group of people who have really been disenfranchised from the pet industry and kind of had a lot of the issues blamed on them, to be perfectly honest, why we have overpopulation, et cetera. So it's really hitting a lot of different elements of what we need to work on in our culture, which is like acceptance of the formerly incarcerated and the incarcerated, job placement for them, bringing them in to help us solve some of these like black eye issues within our culture. And animal euthanasia is definitely one of them. It's causing we see a tremendous amount of racial interaction and harmony within the state prison system. And this is at tough spots. Right. You're at a level 4 and you got people, working with each other like that. It's very unique, but the dogs bring people together in a way that is, really prolific and really profound. And they end up trudging forward to better their lives. I mean, I'm not going to say that everybody stops politicking, but it does give you an opportunity to entrench yourself in something positive and to really take some steps forward to work on loving yourself and prepare yourself to get home. I mean, that's what those dogs represent. Those dogs represent home. Like, baby, you're gonna come home soon. And this dog is a metaphor for that. And the more you put into this life, the more you put into rehabilitating this life, and then by proxy working on yourself, then you're gonna be successful. And it's we've really had a tremendous amount of success in the 8 years we've been doing this. And the sky's the limit, really. We can scale this. Every community has, especially in California, right? Every community has a prison. Every community has an animal shelter. And the need for these trainers, pet industry professionals is tremendous. It's between 10 and 15% increase every year over year. Nice. And right now the economy doesn't have enough dog trainers, doesn't have enough dog walkers, kennel technicians, veterinary technicians, et cetera. So there's for those of us who've been advocating for the incarcerated and formerly incarcerated, we've been praying for like a economy that will accept them. And we've been promised like the renewable energy sector, the like oil and gas sector. We've been promised all this stuff, a bunch of lovely, whispers in our ears, but nothing's a bunch of promises, but nothing's, come true. And you kind of got to just do it on your own. And here we found this pet industry that is like inherently, okay with second chances and inherently like seeks out second chances. So they really get this idea of forgiveness and what we found is that most of the folks who are really interested in our program and our students, working with trainers, they want to work with the formerly incarcerated trainers over a normal trainer, right? So we're seeing this shift, and that's what we need. These are our brothers. These are our sisters. Right. These are American human being, thinking, feeling, loving, empathetic, individuals and I'm not trying to take sympathy on anybody. Like, as you know, as someone who's been down, like there are, by virtue of what you've experienced inside,
That's
you
right.
got something in here that people need, because we're out here suffering and struggling, and we're not behind walls, you know, and what you guys have had to get through just to wake up every day and try to face that day without losing your hope, without losing your integrity, without losing your values.
Right.
And you guys have done that. And I think that, you know, I have learned so much of my life has been more positive, more rich, more deep, more meaningful, because I connect and I have a brotherhood and a community with the formerly incarcerated. You know, there's just a different perspective, and there's a tenacity and just an ability to trudge, just put that one foot in front of the other and keep moving forward. You know, sometimes the way back is forward.
That's
you know
right.
what I mean? And yeah, it's just been beautiful. It feels so good to have found this purpose and to get to talk to people like you and work on this. Like, there's nothing more to have found this type of altruism that really needs our attention. Like, there are millions of individuals that
That's
are
right.
being judged, that are being kept out of our society, that are being maligned, and we're just missing out. Like, the worst thing in life is wasted potential, right?
That's right.
And we're doing that at an institutional level and decimating, you know, communities at the same time. So it feels good to be part of the solution and to be working a way forward on this, you know?
That is amazing. I mean, your passion, you know, the love that you have for it, the compassion that you show, it bleeds forward. It's amazing. And you know, to me, it really seems that you get it. It's incredible that you had to go through what you went through in order to be put in such a situation to where that you can, like, give back because of, like, just the experience that you went through with having the you know, liver cancer. And that's amazing. What type of qualifications do the students have to have in order to be able to enter into your program?
So what we're looking for essentially is a desire to better oneself, to be in the program. You got to have your points down. You can't have had, you know, 115s or write-ups within the last year. We got to try to make sure that you're focused on positivity and being involved with, you know, so you can't have had any serious infractions within the last year. You have to write an essay demonstrating, you know, why you'd like to be involved in the program. You got to be interviewed by us. So we just sit down and have a quick conversation. And that's really all. We're looking for people who are hungry to move forward, to go home, to better themselves, and to be of service. Like, a lot of those of us, I often conflate, like, the addicted, those of us with alcohol and drug addiction and the incarcerated. I often conflate that because, like, it is, like you said at the beginning, it's an element of having been, like, almost enslaved to something, like to have lost your freedom.
That's
to
right.
a degree, you know? And so what we really focus on is that service aspect, you know, and there's a book called Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl, which teaches you to kind of look for the purpose in the suffering. And that's what we're trying to introduce, you know, because we got a lot of life without possibility, you know, a lot of LWOPs, a lot of very long sentences that can be difficult to hold on to that hope. So we're really trying to introduce the idea of service to purpose, and really really bedding down in the idea that no matter if you're coming home or not, you know, this time in here is worthwhile, and that you will find purpose and you will find joy, and you can find, you know, not just a reason to live, but you know, a motivation to get involved in something greater than yourself, you know, because for a lot of guys, myself included, it's very difficult to understand the concept of God, you know, very difficult to understand, especially growing up, you know, atheist. But there is service to a power greater than yourself.
Right.
When you're involved in the dog program, you are serving a life that without you would be euthanized. Like, this life depends on you. A lot of these folks are mothers and fathers too, who don't get to have that connection, who lament their ability, their lack of ability to be in their loved ones' lives. So it gives them an opportunity to serve something other than themselves, which obviously serves them too. But when people really discover that life of service and the sensibilities that come with service, it's like a light switches, you know. It gives you a whole different perspective on your time. And also, to touch, quite honestly, on the family aspect of this, like, one of the
Right.
coolest things about it is that we got social media, and we got pictures and videos. So you got You got people who haven't seen, felt, touched, heard, experienced their loved one in a long time. Kids and stuff, they don't want to hear about pops who's been away for 20 years. They don't want.
That's right.
They don't. They got nothing to grasp onto, and then all of a sudden they see dad rehabilitating a dog on the positive change site with his giving a profound graduation speech coming from the heart, crying, in front of his boys. Giving love to men outside his race and to the it's just beautiful. So it's helping connect some families. It's helping, the way forward for everybody is self-esteem, right? If you don't got self-esteem, you don't have much, and you can only get self-esteem through action. And so this gives our gentlemen, our women, our kids an opportunity to plug into purpose, to plug into service, and to really move forward with pride and and gain that self-esteem through action. I love watching it happen. It's so beautiful.
It is so easy to see the passion just jumping off of you, that you really know, that you really enjoy and really mean what you're saying and what you're doing. And like you said, so many of the people that are incarcerated, they go in there, you can either come out bitter or better. And a lot of people come out bitter because they lose everything. A lot of times they might, woman or man, maybe the relationship is broken up, or their children may have to grow up without them in their lives. And they go in there and they're very, very angry. I was very angry, and I had a strong support system. I had a family. I had a wife. I had children, but I was extremely angry when I went in there. And I've met so many people whose circumstances was even a lot worse than mine. I mean, how much more so angry would I have been if I didn't have a family, I didn't have a support system, I didn't have people to come and visit me. I watched people that was in prison for 10, 15, 20 years that never had a visit, that never really had anyone that they can hug. And to be able to hug and feel that compassion with another being, that's pretty amazing. Explain real quick, what is LWAP? Because I'm not sure. I mean, I know exactly what it is, but everybody might not understand exactly what LWAP means.
Yeah, there's a lot of, so we're on maximum security yards. So LWAP stands for life without the possibility of parole. And there's more LWAP community, inmates in the California system than anyone would ever believe. Like, there's a tremendous amount of people who, and luckily a lot of these cases are being a little bit revisited, especially in California. We've had some adjustments, with different ABs, different bills and stuff that have come through the state legislature. And we've had movement elsewhere to kind of encourage these kind of, really nonsensical sentences to be looked at. But yeah, there are people who really have lost hope. And, it's important for them to understand that their lives are not in vain, and that there is purpose to their time, and that and positive change is a way to I've watched some really remarkable, we have death row was disbanded, was kind of like dissolved here in the state of California, and everybody was moved out of San Quentin and kind of shipped around to different facilities. And so we've had the opportunity to work with some of those individuals here as well. And it's I can't even, sometimes it overwhelms me, man. Like, I'm an emotional person.
Me
you know
too.
What I'm saying? I'm highly emotional.
I get it.
And just to get to be involved in these guys' lives, and you get so much empathy, seeing them, touching them, feeling them, hugging them. Like, you learn these people, and you almost can't imagine their lives without the dog program. You know what I mean? Like, to have that taken away, the reality. That's why I feel such a deep responsibility for it, is because I know how painful it is to have had the program taken away at various facilities and for various individuals. So, I think we've lost sight. There's something immoral, amoral at least, about how we view individuals. Like, we have this, I don't know where it comes from, but we have this idea. Maybe it's just that we always want someone below us, right? Human beings are an animal that's obsessed with, like, status or ranking, and we always gotta, in order to feel better about ourselves, we gotta always be juxtaposed from someone else down here. And I just don't understand how compassionate, progressive people, understanding, thinking, feeling, loving people can look at another human, honestly, regardless of what they've done, and just want to pull the plug on them, essentially.
Right. Throw them away.
And if people understood the numbers of people we're talking about, it's an awful waste to have that mentality. I get carried away, so
No, you're not getting carried away at all. It's fascinating to me, and I just love when I talk to people, I hear from people that, like, really, truly get it. because I'm a really compassionate person. I'm an emotional. So like everything that you're saying resonates with me. And once again, I never had a life sentence. I did have 151 months. I ended up doing 6 years and 4 months and 2 days just because I was able to get my sentence in reverse on a 2255 ineffective assistance to counsel after I lost a trial. I fought my own case. I did it pro se, and I was able to get those convictions overturned later to plead out to a lesser charge because I already had time served, but mine was just for a marijuana sentence.
Nice.
I digress. But there were so many people in there that just made me understand that even though I thought my situation was bad, it gets so much worse. I just could not understand. I know at one point, and this is just the federal system alone, people hear about the federal system. I know at one point, I'm not sure of the exact numbers now, but there was more than 5,000 people that were serving a life sentence without the possibility of parole in the federal system for a non-violent drug offense. So that type of stuff just blows my mind. And that's
Wild,
not even touching on the state.
Yeah.
The many different states. It's wild.
I mean, we have like deliberately sought to throw away other Americans like on purpose with no real, and there's no real order. It doesn't make any sense. It's not making our community safer. What's ours? All right. So in 94, we got the crime bill came out in 94, right? A bunch of well-intended Democrats put together the crime bill.
That's right.
And they kind of pushed it through to compete with the Republicans kind of tough on crime agenda. Right. And all of a sudden we've got, I mean, literally, if you come through the Central Valley where we are, there are prisons everywhere.
That's right.
Everywhere. And so we developed this prison industrial complex where we're locking up 2.5 million Americans, 10 million children directly affected by, parents who are incarcerated. You got $100 billion prison industrial complex, just a system that's just chugging along. There's so much momentum. There's so much inertia. It is this massive thing with prison unions associated and state spending and federal spending and this all these ideologies that are truly nonsensical. So all of those measures were developed in the 90s, right? It's been now 30 years.
Right.
30 years. Has it made any difference whatsoever in crime? Absolutely not. Crime is exactly what it was or worse. 70% of those individuals get out of prison and end up back in there within a few years. Explain to me if we were running any other business and we failed 70% of the time, our business would go out. We would go out of business. We go bankrupt. Yet we just keep throwing money at this system, because we politicized it. We've taken the heart out of it. We've taken the mind out of it, to be honest.
That's right.
The best way to set people up for success and to dissolve some of these cultural elements that have made their way into the prison system that are just fucking terrible is to introduce programming. You got to let people like me people like my comrades, other people that I work with, you got to let us into these prisons to share our experience, strength, and hope, and our knowledge about this field that we work in, and you got to let us in there to provide that hope and opportunity. Because the reason your prison is as dark and let's also just back up for a second and just think about it is California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation. Let's talk about that rehabilitation for a second. You walk into it's a absolute they just threw that word in there for no reason. I mean, I will give some credit. There's a lot of things moving right now in the federal system because of the First Step Act. The First Step Act didn't have all that much teeth, but it nonetheless initiated. It gave people permission to start looking at programming, and it gave the right, nobody from the right really. I have tons of cooperation from the right in my community. My congressman is Kevin McCarthy, and we've had a tremendous amount of support from the state system, all from the right. It was very difficult for me to get support for the program for the left, which for me just doesn't make much sense. It was hard for me to understand. So that needle's moving, but any prison that we go into, the first thing you feel when you walk in there is this tremendous sense of darkness.
That's right. Of
hopelessness, you can feel the violence permeating beneath the surface. It sits in your chest, but what I also feel is, when I first started going in there, I didn't know what to do with my eyes. I was like, shit, do I acknowledge people? Do I keep my head down? I don't want to offend nobody, but how do I comport myself? And I just committed, anybody, I'm going to try to make eye contact with every single person in there, and every single person I'm going to acknowledge. And if I get close enough to them, I'm going to shake their hand. If they want to dap me up, I'm going to do that. If they're in my program and they want to hug, I'm going to hug them. and just that has made like the biggest difference. I mean, if you roll into a prison with the right energy, you can spread a positive, you can leave a positive streak that other people will pick up, and they'll leave that positive streak, and then all of a sudden you got positivity bubbling up beneath the surface to combat that darkness. And they gotta work. To me, the way forward in the prison system is to allow and incentivize more programming to come into the prison systems, to start putting some of that money, instead of locking people up and adding more, custody staff, et cetera, is to let more programming in, have the schedule and the operational procedures around incarceration be focused on programming, and really just taking that like dark, rigidly negative. I mean, people are incubating in this. They are 100%. Sitting in there for decades, just absorbing that shit. Terrible energy, and the thing is like, when you do bring in that positivity, you do bring in a dog or the right attitude, like, people are so with it. They're so ready for it. They don't want to be torn down by all that darkness. Like, they're ready for that positivity. And so long as you bring respect in and you understand like how things work in there, there's room for love, man. And there's room for respect, love, adoration, camaraderie. There's I'm all about like, the incarcerated, to me, are the most disenfranchised, the most discriminated against, the most, the population that most needs to be focused on for change, because they deserve it. And we tend to say they're not deserving because they committed a crime. All of us have fucked up. Every single one of us have violated deep moral principles within ourselves. Some of you might have done it yesterday, and you're not, you know what I'm saying? 100%. And we tend to forget that, we tend to lose sight of our religious principles. Who's the one Jesus is going to be loving in this situation, right? And we have to have this. We need to like shake our society to get them to drop this nonsensical approach towards how we judge the incarcerated and the formerly incarcerated. It's not loving. It's not right. It's not Christian. It's not Buddhist. It's not. It goes against how we apply ourselves in every other moral way. Yet for some reason, whether it's all this lockup raw we've been inundated with, or like I said, this having to juxtapose ourselves from someone less than, like this invented caste system. But I tell you what, man, when you do get to watch the magic happen, there's just nothing better. It makes me emotional thinking about it. There's nothing better. When you watch someone who comes in that program who like will only say a few words, it's kind of like doesn't know whether to trust me, doesn't know, is this dude for real? This guy's loud. He's all, what is this? Is this a show?
Why does he care about us so much?
Yeah, right? What's his agenda? What are you trying to?
What's his angle?
To watch it take place, man. To watch that light switch turn, and to watch them, it's just one of the most beautiful things to get to help someone leverage their potential. And I got guys that I met, 7 years ago who were still doing what they needed to do in prison. And now I know them on the outside. Wow. And they're small business owners, and they're starting families, and we get to see each other on our text thread that we do every morning, and we're sending love to each other all day long. And it's just that it is all possible. Addressing and healing and coming up with a more proactive, sensible way to address incarceration is 1,000% possible. We keep looking at it like it's this Herculean task, that just this immovable object. We created this immovable object. We can deconstruct this immovable object. And I'm not talking about like tearing it all down necessarily. I'm not going to be militant about it that way, but there are proactive steps that we can make with money that already exists, that's already within these institutions, that can start to help, rebuild some of these communities, provide that hope, provide that opportunity, and the rest will kind of take care of itself. And, I think I do feel like I really do want to give credit to a lot of people out there, like Mr. Choate, who's in charge of programming here in the California state system. He's really, and honestly, this is going to sound, a little strange considering like the room, but Donald Trump and Tim Scott, the First Step Act was something big. Right. I mean, it was a big deal, and it was a big deal, if only that it brought so many different organizations together. I was at the unveiling of that, in Washington, and it has changed. The federal system, they wouldn't return a phone call prior to that. And now we have a program at the federal system, and they want more programs, and they're helping us hunt down money, and they're super supportive, and they're wonderful. Like, everyone we deal with at the federal system here in California has been awesome. And just about everyone we deal with in the state system has been awesome. We've had wardens that are so down for our program, they will, just about do anything to help, because they see the value. They see the value in terms of the safety. There's less drug dealing that happens. There's far less violence. There's cooperation between staff and the incarcerated. There's all sorts of good things that happen. And this is it's their environment. And if they want to cultivate and create positivity within their environment, this is necessary. And so it's been really cool to watch that kind of us versus them mentality, kind of fade away a little bit, and to make room for programs that make a difference.
That is awesome. And like the aims of the criminal justice system, one of the major aims, and of all of the state Bureau of Prisons, whether it's Bureau of Prisons or whether it's Department of Corrections for the state level, one of the aims is to rehabilitate. So that's one of the things that I could never understand, especially when I was in there, because I was pretty well-read, and I got more well-read when I was in there, because I wanted to know, how can you justify rehabilitation if you're not rehabilitating anyone? And even if you take it back just a little bit further, before the 1994 crime bill, it actually started in 1987 under the SRA, the Sentencing Reform Act, under the Reagan administration. And it was the Reagan administration, but it was also the Democrats also. It was both of them, because the Democrats had Congress and the Republicans had the White House. But that's when they took parole out of the system. That's when they went to 100-to-1 with the crack to cocaine sentencing. And that's when they started taking the program out of the federal system. And that's where I really have a problem with it. Now, just to speak it plain, there wasn't as many black and brown people that were in the federal system until after the 1987 Sentencing Reform Act, when they started federalizing crack and this and that and all of the nonsense. One of the people that I read obviously I'm just reading you and hearing about the wonderful things that you're doing today. And I wonder if you've heard of this person, Michelle Alexander. She wrote a book, and you probably might want to read it. It's the Prison Industrial Complex. It's the new Jim Crow, the Prison Industrial Complex. And when I read her book, I was quite impressed, because she really understood it on a visceral level. And she talks about exactly what we're having this conversation about now, is how it was an agenda, and how they built up the Prison Industrial Complex, and how so many different industries. So there's nobody lobbying. There's no corporation lobbying, because there's so many different corporations that are benefiting from the prison industrial complex one way or another. You've got private prisons. You've got prosecutors and judges that are allowed to invest in these private prisons. So you've got judges that are literally incentivized to give people long sentences. That's crazy to me. So my question to you is, are you able to, I'm sure you are, but what type of tracking are you seeing that you can prove in black and white that people that come home are not recidivating, they're not reoffending, because then you can show in a factual manner that your program is working.
So we were working with Princeton for a while, as well as some folks from Cal State University of Los Angeles to gather data, and we weren't able to get access through this prison system to the data that we needed. So when we spent years trying to do this, so there's an interruption, there's a roadblock for us to gather the information that we need in order to follow our students when they get out. We also don't have anywhere near the funding we need to keep things going. So we have to supplement about 50% of our program. We get some funding through the state, through the Innovative Program grants, and through the Rights 2.0 grants. So that's been very helpful. But for us, we have to, it's just this loose ad hoc approach with just a group of us who are really down with our students, and we follow up. We try to get them employed when they get out. So to my knowledge, only one person we've had about 1,000 graduates, and maybe 60, 70 have gotten out of prison. And I know of one that went back to prison, and he ended up fell off the wagon, because his family was killed in a car accident. He ended up falling off the wagon because of that, and in one way or another ended up back in prison. He ended up back in our program at a different prison. So that was pretty prolific that he, came back to our program, But what I do know is that anybody who's wanted to get involved in the pet industry that was a student of ours has done so. And the vast majority are long-term incarcerated. So we're talking 10 to 25 year sentences, some longer than that. and they're incredibly successful. And we've tried with more funding and with more support. This is what I'm talking about. Like, we clearly have a proven model. We got 30 formerly incarcerated dog trainers out there. These are people that are working in the field, that are contributing to their society, that are making a difference, that are paying the bills, that are starting families, that are hiring other individuals. Like, so I've seen firsthand how successful it is, because I talk, these individuals are my friends. These are who I, many of them, again, because of who they are. Like, who do you think I'm going to when I've had a tough day? Sometimes I'm gonna go to my sponsor, or I'm gonna go to one of my students.
Wow.
Because they know how to get through a tough day in prison.
That's right.
If I'm going through a tough day out here, they can sure as shit help me get through it based on what they've been through. So, there's some really special individuals that I really covet, who have really, really helped me get through some tough times. And so hopefully with more support and more funding, we can build those wraparound services where we can connect with our guys like 6 months before they get out, make sure they have a pipeline to success, make sure we can track them, make sure we can provide them various types of resources, whether it be housing or business development, or any of the things that they need. And it's just been, it's been a super challenge to keep the lights on. This is an all-out grind, a day-to-day slugfest, just trying to be alive, just trying to keep this going. And we've had to leave several facilities because we ran out of funding, and we've had to restart things over. And and before I forget, like, one of the true, there's a few things that I see in our trajectory. One is opening as many positive change programs as possible in as many communities as possible. The other is our graduates. There's no better way to influence the youth. Like, our communities, especially Black and brown communities, are devastated with a culture of incarceration. It's not just the prison industrial complex, that has sort of unfairly and unjustly created a lot of measures to keep people down for a long time. It's how it then translates to the culture, the rite of passage, all of these different things that are ingrained into the culture, right? And they're not going to hear it from me. You know what I mean? Right. They're not going to hear it from Johnny Law. They're not going to hear it from any politician. Who they're going to listen to is someone that was at Old Corcoran for 18 years, and it was about it. And so we have a couple juvenile programs, and those guys, for them to get out, and their purpose too, man, they know, so many of them are hyper focused on, I know I can make a difference here. You put me in front of these kids, I will make a difference. Please put me in front of these kids. Hey, Zach, because we're working on a bunch of different juvenile programs. Please, can I be involved in this program, or that program? This is where I see my purpose, and this is where I see myself making the biggest difference. And if politicians, if anybody watching out there listening to this wants to think about how to permeate, how to get through that impenetrable boundary, that's how you do it. Is the way you get through to these kids is people that have been down, who have been through it, and will keep it real with you, and really show you what not to do.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Yeah. Before you got into this program, I know you had mentioned, and we've covered a lot of ground. You've shared a lot of information with us. But I wanted to ask you this. You said you struggled with addiction before. You struggled with alcoholism. All of this took place before you started getting into the dogs, right? That is actually one of the things that led you.
Yeah, I started getting into dogs, to be honest, because I was I've always been a dog rescuer. I rescued my first dog when I was 8, coming home from school.
Okay, so you love
in Los Angeles.
You have a passion.
Yeah, always have, man. Wow. I've always felt a little out of my. I've always felt uncomfortable. Everybody always viewed me, my nickname was Golden Boy when I was a kid, which I hated. I couldn't stand that. But everybody saw a bunch of wonderful things in me that it's not that I didn't necessarily see them, I just didn't feel it. I always felt a little uncomfortable in my own skin. And I always felt, I never felt like I was meeting my potential. I always felt like I wasn't quite there. And the love, that kind of unconditional love, that acceptance, the acceptance you get from a dog is just magical for me. It always lands. It always helps me feel like I'm okay, And I think that's another thing that it does for our students is it helps them feel accepted and helps them feel okay. And I was volunteering in animal welfare. I started in 2002 up here in Tehachapi with the Humane Society, Canine Canyon Ranch, a few other places. And then when I got sick, when I went into liver failure, when I got out of the hospital, I just, started reaching back out to him and saying, hey, can I start fostering some dogs? And then, one dog led to 2 dogs, led to 3 dogs. And before you know it, I got 13 dogs living in my dad's garage while I'm trying to beat liver failure, and that's how it all just really organically came together, and so yeah, I've been sober 15 years.
That's awesome.
I'm still a comprehensive transplant patient. I still got to go in for liver CTs and MRIs and endoscopies and all this crazy imaging, because once you're in there, you're in there. Most people die or they get a liver transplant. So obviously neither of those things happen for me. So I'm a liver transplant patient in good standing, and if the time comes that I develop liver cancer or my liver quits on me, then I'll be in a good spot to receive transplant and get the help I need.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
And they called you the Golden Boy. Did you always? No. Did you always have, like, because you have such a passion for helping other people? Do you think, like, just the thing that you went through with, possibly, facing cancer, terminal cancer, do you feel that kind of just made you connect more with the hopelessness that many of these long-term inmates may feel, or something like that?
I just know what it is, man, is people were there for me. There's a couple of different things. One is I feel like I really need to give back. Like, I am here not of my own free will. Like, people hear my story sometimes and think, oh, you were so brave. You were so brave. No, I was a wreck. I was nothing. There's not, you rewind the clock, put a camera in my hospital room. I was a prick. I was scared out of my mind. I was addicted to drugs. Like, there was nothing brave about what was happening in that hospital room. Like, I had my dad, who loved me so much that he was going to find a way to help me get into a transplant program. He never gave up on me. That was the big one. And then my dogs were there for me. My dogs were there to, like, breathe this life into me when I was, looking at my dad's 9mm, just, daydreaming about when I was going to take my life, and so I found the only thing that blows my hair back, that keeps me going, is service. The rest of it just doesn't resonate with me. I mean, I would love to have money. Don't get me wrong. Right. I would love to be, like, comfortable enough to, financially, to be, like, free, to not have to worry all the time. But for me, life is about service, and that's the bone marrow of life. That's that good shit. That's the you find service, and it's hard, and you're dealing with people, of course, and people are fallible. But, like, when you get plugged into service, whether it's in recovery, and really that's just a key tenet of recovery is service. The way forward is to serve. And yeah, that's when I feel the most alive. If you look at my internal odometer, right? Like, when my engine revs, it's being of service. That's what really gets me going. That feeling, that connection, that's where that holiness is in there. When you get to connect with a person who's struggling, and you're there to give them some light and some love, like, that little bit of that, there's something about that, like, that'll keep me coming back for more and for more and for more. I love it, man.
That's incredible. Did you know, was there something inside of you that said that if these animals can give me, if these dogs can give me that type of encouragement and that type of love, it's going to give it to other people too? Because it's not like you're giving people the opportunity to be able to love again. I know a lot of these people, they don't know how to love anymore because they just got so much bitterness and hate inside of them. And then to be able to just have that living being come inside of their life.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
1,000%, man. Like, there's something about a dog's ability to kind of show you how to love yourself. It combines with service, but there's just something so special about a dog's ability to kind of show you the way forward and to help you plug into love. There's so many dynamics to this. It's people want to, like, dumb it down and be like, oh, you're just the you, like, don't you bring, like, puppies in for, like, inmates to cuddle on? And, like, part of me wants to be like, fuck you. That is, but they really tend to simplify what the program is. The program is a journey of self, is really what it is. And, one of the things we teach in there, for instance, is, like, when you got that leash and you're holding that leash, that is an umbilical cord of energy that is feeding whatever you're feeling into that dog. So this dog needs you. This dog needs to be rehabilitated. This dog is abandoned just like you. Dog's been behind bars just like you, and it is hopeless right now, and it's relying on you. And so you have to, when you take that leash, you have to think about what you are feeling. And if you're feeling violent, and if you're feeling angry, if you're feeling bitter, pass that leash off to your partner, to your teammate, and get your shit together. Take some breaths, talk to your boys about what you're feeling. But we try to create an emotionally safe space for people to discuss what they are actually feeling. A lot of prison is chin up, shoulders back. You know what I mean?
Right.
And that yeah, man, that Denzel strut across the yard, right? Which is totally understandable. It's required, but at some point, to heal, you got to understand what you're actually feeling, And so the dogs give people a real opportunity to root down into, to fucking admit that they're afraid, for one.
They can say anything to the dog too. They can, something that you might not be willing to say to your friend, or bleed your heart out. It's just a different type of communication between the interaction between you and a dog. I'm a dog lover. I'm an animal lover. I have 2 dogs.
Yeah.
And I've been taught how to train. Like when I got my dogs trained, I went to one of the training courses where they teach me to teach the dog. I had to be there, on site in the free world.
Yeah. Because it's really training you.
It's training you.
Yeah, that's what we're doing in there. We're training. We're teaching our students. We're training our students to become trainers, and we're really listening to and guiding the dog, and we're training the human. We're not really training the dog.
And the dogs, so they train how long does the program last for? Is it like a 9-month program, or
14 weeks?
14 weeks.
So
okay.
two weeks of intro where we're bringing in different dogs, different energies, and then we bring the dogs in for 3 months, 12 weeks. They live there in the institution. They don't live in the cell. They live in the pod up against, the only time they're not with them is when they're at chow or they're asleep.
Okay.
The rest of the time they're working.
It gives them a sense of responsibility too.
And they're working that Canine Good Citizen certification. So it's a 10-point test. They're going to be tested at the end of class, at the end of the period, at the end of the program. They're going to be tested for the CGC, and those students, each one of those handlers is going to have to pass that test. Is going to have to demonstrate that they can take their dog through each one of those 10 steps. So it is a certification program.
That's awesome. And it's rehabilitating. It sounds like it's therapeutic. You're giving them skills. You're giving them job training for when they get out. You're giving them so many different things. That's amazing. You're to be commended, and everybody involved in your program. I just hope and pray that it continues to grow. You certainly get it. So when the dogs are trained, then do they get, what happens where do they go? They go to someone on the outside?
They get adopted.
They get adopted.
Yeah, so we listen for adoption on our website, marleysmutts.org. People can go to Marley's Mutts on Instagram, or Positive Change Program, PAW, Positive Change Program on Instagram and Facebook. So the dogs will graduate, they'll leave prison, they'll get adopted. Some get adopted by the families of the incarcerated. And then we're going to take a couple weeks off, and then we start over again.
That's awesome. I was going to ask you, and with the program that they had at the prison I was at Maxwell prison camp, when some of the dogs that they didn't pass whatever test that they had to pass, because they would, when they get trained, they would train for people on the outside, but some of them might not pass that test, and either the families of the student could get it, or if the student was going home, they could keep that dog also. Do you ever have any students that are able to reconnect with that dog when they get out that they might have trained?
Tons and tons. Yeah, we've had a bunch of different students. So our dogs are shelter dogs. The program you're talking about was service dog training for some purpose, and dogs that have flunked out of service dog training. So what's cool about ours is these are dogs that would otherwise lost their life. There's a camaraderie. As soon as our dudes see the dogs, they want the most. Our students always want the most fucked up. They want a basket case to come in. That they really want to work. They want to rehabilitate. They want to put their love, their heart, their soul into these dogs. And they want the worst. They want the worst of the worst. They want to see themselves in this dog, and they want to get better together. But a whole bunch of guys have adopted dogs. Vo adopted Prada, Mr. Brian James adopted Flynn. There's been a bunch.
It sounds like to me, and I'm so happy you said that, because that was going to be the question I asked. It sounds like to me they want the worst of the worst, or the basket case, as you said, because they know that's how people view them. And if they can rehabilitate those dogs or bring those dogs back, That's when
100%.
they do it to the dogs, it's probably giving them confidence in themselves. Like, yo, this dog is not to be thrown away. And neither am I.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah, 100%. We got to change the way we think about it. Like prison, don't get me wrong, prison sucks. It's terrible. It doesn't make any sense to me. But they are still forging their fortitude. Like doing difficult things in life builds character. You know what I'm saying? And if you've been down for a long period of time, and you can hold on to your integrity and your dignity, that builds massive amounts of character. Like you've been through some shit. It might not be college, but you have forged yourself into something special. And even though it's not a conventional degree or whatever, like we are missing out on a really special population of individuals that by virtue of what they have gone through being down have something particularly unique to offer the world.
That's right.
For real. And people need to understand that like there is a stick-to-itiveness, a tenacity, a never say die attitude. There are some things that they have done, learned, ingrained in themselves to survive that make them valuable. More valuable than I hate to say this, but more valuable than people who haven't. And I think we ought to change that narrative. And I'm really happy to see some of the socio-cultural elements changing. I'm excited to see more formerly incarcerated people out there representing. I'm excited to see different segments of our population. I'm excited to see things like Homeboy Industries take hold and people take a lot of interest in Homeboy Industries. Love seeing the Anti-Recidivism Coalition develop and create all this camaraderie and all this community around the incarcerated. Like, again, we've lost sight. Like these are our brothers, our parents, our fathers, our mothers, are like our love. They deserve. They are no less deserving than the rest of us. And we've checked out morally. We've like lost sight of this shit. And it's the only realm, right? We live in a woke generation, right, where people are like hyper accountable for this shit. But when it comes to the incarcerated, it's like, nope. Let's just discriminate. Full stop. Let's just, they're the only segment of the population that are actively discriminated against. And like, people don't care.
Right.
And
legally discriminated against.
What's that?
And legally discriminated against structurally.
Yeah,
it's
legally.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Institutionally discriminated against.
Yeah.
And it continues to happen. But you, my friend, are making a change in a concrete way. And we're getting short on time, but please say some more encouraging words to those out there. Tell people how to find out about your program. Tell people where to find you, how that they can contribute to your program or donate to your program in any way that they might be able to do it. Let them know. Let them know where they can find you.
Yeah, absolutely. So the best way to get involved is to just visit marleysmutts.org. Marley like Bob Marley, Mutts like a mixed breed dog, marleysmutts.org. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram. At Marley's Mutts is the organization. Positive Change Program is the program. We're both very active on there. And I just want to encourage people to hire, to be interested in the incarcerated and the formerly incarcerated. If you're interested in making a difference in someone's life, what you have in here can change their life. There are prison facilities everywhere, and those prison facilities are desperately in need of people who are willing to share their experience, strength, and hope within those facilities. Whether it's hosting an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting, a Narcotics Anonymous meeting, an Alternatives to Violence meeting, the programs can only exist if individuals like us are willing to get in there and make a difference. So, I just really encourage people to have tough conversations with their loved ones about moving the needle, about letting love and respect and integrity and honesty and back into this conversation. And I think as Americans, if we hope to be proud of our nation and of our society, we have to really take a long, hard look at ourselves and how we address the incarcerated and the formerly incarcerated. If we hope to be proud, if we hope to maintain our dignity in terms of how we treat individuals, we need to change this, and we need to keep making progress. And hats off to all those politicians, to all those individuals who have finally kind of met the needs and decided to change, some of these real draconian mindsets and start moving us in the right direction. So, and brother, Good on you, dude. I love that you're doing this. You got the same intensity. You got the same
No
vibe,
doubt.
man. I could talk to you for hours, man.
No
This
doubt.
is good on you, brother.
No doubt. Okay. Listen, it has been my absolute privilege and a pleasure and a blessing for me, and more importantly, for all of you to be able to sit down and have this wonderful conversation for this beautiful human being, Zach Skow. You heard him. He is golden. I completely understand why they used to call him the golden child, because he has a heart made of gold. You are awesome. He is encouraging, inspiring, and motivating to me, and hopefully to all of y'all. Thank you so much for tuning in. He told you where to find him. You know where to find us. Anywhere you look for your podcast on all social media platforms, make sure that you check out In and Out WW. That's INNOUT WW. Check us out. Keep tuning in. And now we're out. Peace.
Let's go, baby.